So we're picking up where we left off on our 2025 SEC coach hot seat gauge going into the 25 season. In the last video, we left off with Mark Stoops, and now we continue it with Brian Kelly at LSU entering year 4. And I think he has one of the better teams going into 2025. Actually, he's cold as ice, by the way. Part of that is because he's got Garrett Nussmeier. One of the best, if not the best, quarterback in the SEC going into this season. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of quarterbacks that have left the draft, transferred out, things like that. So, in the pool of quarterbacks that are left in the conference, Garrett Nussmeier is up there at the top. If LSU has at least an average, slightly above average defense this season, I think they can win games and could actually make the playoff. So we move on now to Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, and he's entering year 6. He pulled himself out of the muck in 2023, and he continued a lot of that success over into 2024. Now, for 2025, I think going into this season, he's just fine. He's cold as ice there as well. What does Missouri look like in 2025? Can they get over the wall that they were behind last year, that wall being Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss? If they can at least get by one or two of those teams, I think he stays right there. But for now, I think he's got a pretty good thing going on there in Columbia, Missouri. We move on to a tricky one here, and that's Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State inheriting a mess, and that's putting it nicely. Entering year 2, we all know he went 2-10. We don't have to harp on that. Honestly, and I know what you people are going to say, but I'm putting his seat as cold as ice, and you may be asking, like, okay, you put Kalen DeBoer at mild. You put Jeff Lebby at cold as ice. I don't get it. What are you doing, Brandon? Well, let me explain. Okay. The expectations for these two teams are completely different. The environment that these two coaches inherited, that they came into, are two wildly, vastly different things. You have Kalen DeBoer that inherits a team from the retiring Nick Saban. On the other hand, you have Jeff Lebby that took over a team from interim coach that turned into the real head coach, and it wasn't a fit. Mike Leach died a few years ago. All that stuff happened, and it was just a bad hand of cards that was dealt to whoever was going to inherit this team. And for Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State, the thing that I will say, and I've heard this from fans, and I've heard this from certain local media that cover the program, 5 wins. 5 wins would be a success this season. And 6 wins and a bowl berth would be absolutely incredible. Like the biggest of victories. Look, we got to pump the brakes. Mississippi State is not going to fire a coach in year 2. They're not going to do that. They can't afford to do that. It would not be in their best interest. So that's why I'm putting him as cold as ice. We've got Brent Venables at Oklahoma, and it's a little bit tougher for him. We all know that Oklahoma, they had a rough start in the SEC. He's only entering year 4, but, there's a lot of tension between fans in Oklahoma, and you could tell me any Oklahoma fans out there if I'm wrong about this, but I have read words recently such as win or be fired when talking about Brent Venables. I don't know if it's necessarily that bad. Also, what do you mean by that? Like, how many wins? Are we talking about 8 wins, 9 wins? Are we wanting to compete for a playoff? Some people think they may be a dark horse for playoff contention. I don't think they're there quite yet, but I'm putting Brent Venables at moderately warm. But from Brent Venables, we move on to Oxford, Mississippi. Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss Rebels, he's entering year 6, and he's had some pretty good success. Oxford loves him. He loves Oxford. He's been pretty darn consistent. If you're an Ole Miss fan, you take that. You accept that. He's been consistent over his years. They've won a lot of games. They've won bowls. They've been in contention. Does he take the next step and make it to the playoff? I don't know. A lot of players are gone to the NFL. You had a really good program last year. You had a really good defense. Can they at least do what they did last season? I think this team is at least an 8-win team this year. Austin Simmons are really it's going to be exciting to see how good he is I know he's a really intelligent kid, and we'll see if that can translate maybe to some success at QB. And just how's the line? How's the defense? All those questions will be answered, but nevertheless, Lane Kiffin's seat is cold as ice, and it will probably be cold as ice as long as he wants to be in Oxford. Let's just be honest here. It's turned out to be a match made in heaven, and that's just how that is. So we move on from Oxford, Mississippi to Columbia, South Carolina. Shane Beamer there, entering year number 5, and this time I actually add another coach to the mild thing here, right beside Kalen DeBoer. He really did himself a lot of favors last season by getting in the playoff discussion. But at the same time, I think that added a lot of pressure. It's going to be expected for him to compete for the playoff again this season. I don't know if he's going to do that. His seat's mild. It's just a little bit toasty. I don't know. We'll see. So Josh Heupel is next from Tennessee. No doubt, cold as ice for him as well. And this cold as ice list is really filling up here. He made the playoff. There's not much else to say. They're going to contend for that again this year. Another coach on the cold as ice list is Steve Sarkisian at Texas. Texas just fit in the SEC like a glove. I mean, like, it was like they were made for each other, right? Texas contended for the SEC. They made it to the playoff. They're probably going to do the same again this year. It's going to be fun to see what Archie Manning can do, if he is as good as people say he is. And I think he's going to be pretty good. I know he at least has the genes. I know he's got a lot of athleticism. He just hasn't had a chance to really showcase that. And that week 1 matchup versus Ohio State is going to be chef's kiss, I believe. So from Steve Sarkisian, we move right on down the road to College Station. Mike Elko entering year 2. Texas A&M, he won 8 games. His seat's still cold as ice. Although I will say that at some point, Texas A&M fans, Texas A&M donors are going to start expecting, like, some playoff berths, at least, like, fighting for the playoff. And they had a chance. I will say that. They had a chance at the end of the season last year. The cards didn't fall right for them. If they can get to a playoff here in the next 2 to 3 years, you won't be able to tell Texas A&M fans nothing. They're going to pay him a lot of money. And, the other thing to that is they really do not want to have to pay another big buyout. So I think his seat's going to be cold as ice for maybe longer than you would expect. So from there, we make it to our final coach on the list, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. And, yeah, you might have mixed opinions on this. I'm putting him at moderately warm. Clark Lee last season, he delayed the inevitable. Okay. They beat Alabama. We all know that. You all saw it. I saw it. Everybody saw it. They made it to a bowl game. They ended up getting 7 wins, which is really good for Vanderbilt. Are they one-hit wonders? Can they sustain that, at least that equal success that they did last season this year? I don't know. But I think now, like, there's probably more there was going to be pressure on him anyway going into this year. Like, this was going to be a make it or break it year for him. And that's one thing that keeps him from not being on fire is Diego Pavia coming back and that success and that good publicity that they had last season. That's it. That is the list. And, as I'm looking back on it here, you have an argument to move some of these coaches to on fire. So right now I ended up with, with Hugh Freeze, his seat on fire. People could argue Mark Stoops. People could obviously argue Brent Venables, Billy Napier, and any of those coaches that are moderately warm. You could probably make some kind of reasonable argument for them to be on fire. I just didn't see it that way. Maybe Sam Pittman his seat should be on fire. I will defend Kalen DeBoer being at mild, although obviously it could be cold as ice because I think he's going to contend for a playoff this year, and I think they're going to have a darn good team, regardless of who the quarterback is. Because as I'm recording this, that's not exactly determined yet, although it's probably going to be Ty Simpson. But all those coaches with cold as ice seats, pretty confident for all those, even Jeff Lebby. So that is the list right there. All 16 SEC coaches, the hot seat gauge going into the 2025 season. We'll make some more lists as we go into the year, and as we get to the end of the season, we'll look back at this, we'll see how everything played out, and we'll see where these coaches stand. If all these coaches still have a job at the end of the year, that is. So thank you so much for watching, and if you like what I did here, check out some more stuff. Give me a comment. Let me know what you think. My name's Brandon Taylor. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.